Hello and welcome to the Kidney Ally Nutrition Podcast, the one and only podcast where we tackle the hardest questions around what constitutes a good, healthy kidney diet. Whether you're a patient, a carer, a nephrologist, or a dietitian, I'm sure you'll learn something new today about what constitutes a good, healthy kidney diet. Hi guys, how you going? My name is Carl, the co-host of Kidney Ally Nutrition Podcast, and pass on to my co-host.
Hi, I'm Ruth Kanda, renal dietitian in London, and very excited to be here today to talk to you.
So today, guys, we're going to be talking around fluids. We've had a lot of feedback in the group about questions around fluids, things like how much water I drink, is this particular drink bad, can I drink soft drink, coffee and tea, question marks. So we're really going to talk today around all the questions around fluids. We'll probably kick off firstly with just water in general. I'm going to shoot Ruth a number of questions here. Hopefully we have some answers. I think that water is I look at it as kidney's best friend because I just haven't drunk any drinks other than water. Maybe besides alcoholic drinks, but like in water as my consumption drink is my favorite drink, which works out quite well for me, a kidney patient. But in regards to water in general, like, is there an amount of water I should be drinking a day? That's probably my first question. Because as a transplant patient, it was indicated when I had my transplant that I just need to drink lots of water. That was it. It wasn't very clear how much, how little. But I just drink lots of water because it's good for your kidney. Is there a certain amount I should be drinking as a transplant patient? Is that the same as someone on dialysis or someone on CKD stage 3? How does water in general for the average person?
So water is good, and also you're right, it kind of hydrates the kidneys, and if you don't have enough water when your kidneys aren't working so well, or generally in life, then you can suffer from kidney problems, and you can get acute kidney injury from very severe dehydration. In terms of the different stages, so I guess water amounts will depend on different stages and different medical problems that you may or may not have. So in terms of a transplant patient, we say yes, drink loads. The problem with specifying how much is because everyone is a different body size. So I might say to a lady, or you might say to a lady of 40 kilos, yeah, drink 3 or 4 liters a day. But then somebody who's 120 kilos, they would also need quite a lot. And a little old lady of 40 kilos, that would be too much for her anyway. So there is a calculation, a general calculation for fluid requirements in patients, usually hospital patients, but I think it extends to out of hospital as well, and that is around 30 to 35 ml per kilo.
Oh, really? So
okay?
I never knew that. That's very fascinating.
Yeah. So when somebody says to me, how much shall I drink? I'll always look at that equation and I'll always work it out. And then I'll say to them roughly, because when you're working out a nasogastric feed in hospital or a feed in hospital or parenteral nutrition when someone's not well, you need to know how much volume they need to have roughly. And that's the calculation we do. So I'm just extrapolating it into kind of everyday life. But yeah, so in transplant patients, you need to drink lots. And the big tip as well is I say to people, you know that you've drunk enough. If your urine runs clear, so it's not yellow, it's just clear, white, then you've drunk enough. If your urine is very dark, then you haven't drunk enough. And if your urine is light yellow, you've also drunk enough. So that's kind of quite a good way to know without measuring anything how well hydrated or dehydrated you are. In terms of dialysis.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was going to say, is that for transplant and for CKD patients or just for transplant patients?
So for transplant and CKD, probably 1, 2, 3. CKD 4, you may have a problem with fluid retention and you may be told drink 1.5 liters or just drink 1 liter a day, but you will be told, well, usually you're told quite clearly and you'll know And you'll know as well if you get very puffy ankles and you're not managing and you're on high dose diuretics, and they'll tell you to cut down on your drink, or say to them, should I drink a certain amount? Because I always say to patients, ask, don't be shy to ask. You know, I get people asking me, oh, they didn't offer me this or they didn't offer me that. Ask, always ask. And then in dialysis patients, again, it will depend on your urine output. So if you're passing, you know, some dialysis patients are really lucky and they've passed lots of urine and they don't need to worry too much about how much to drink. But others, you know, they might be in a situation where both kidneys have been removed. So they've got, you know, they're not going to pass any urine at all, totally dependent on dialysis. Or you might pass just a little bit, or you might be passing a moderate amount. And in dialysis patients, the rule of thumb is the amount of urine you pass the day before plus 500 ml. So, but that also, you need to kind of be up to speed with how much urine you're passing. And I do say to people, if they're really keen, I say, you know what, just take an old jug and just measure it for a couple of days and see how much you pass.
So is that just like, so
and then,
if I am a later stage CKD 4 and 5 and dialysis, the thought there is that your kidneys are slowing down and the only ways you can release fluids from your body is through urine or maybe sweating. Is that the other one that would be the ways you can release water? And then so if your fluid doesn't get released, it then starts to sit around the body, and then that's why your ankles get puffy, and that's why so it's basically storing fluid in your body somewhere, and that's usually in the ankles, is it?
It's in the ankles, in the lung, can be in the lungs. That's when you get something called pulmonary edema, where you've just got water in the lungs. Or some people it goes to their face. Some people get puffy hands. It depends on the.
I sometimes get that on the I take 5 milligrams of prednisone still a day, and I still swear that I get sometimes, if I'm dehydrated or if I'm have fluid retention. For me, it goes definitely to my face, which is like I get that moon face. It's not that bad, obviously, than compared to having very high levels of prednisone, but I hate fluid retention. It's like one of the most annoying things. Is there any tips around like how to reduce fluid retention if people have it in their ankles or their face or their lungs? How would they release that?
So it is really difficult, and I think it's mainly medical management. But to try and avoid it, that's why we say to stick to a low salt diet.
Yeah.
Because salt causes you to retain more fluid, and therefore, if you're eating a lot of salt, you're A, drinking too much, more than your body can cope with, and B, your body's just going to retain it. Even if it can get rid of it, it will still retain it because all the salt.
Salt is tasty but evil, it seems. But yeah, so keeping to the topic of water, we have a lot of people in our group asking around like types of water they can drink. So is there a difference between tap water and bottled water? And is there certain bottled waters that people should avoid? Because in the group, people ask about Fuji water. Someone asked around a different bottled water. Is there a medical recommendation on bottled water versus tap water?
So I saw that too. So in the UK, there's a big push to have pure tap water. There's no, it's safe. There's no reason not to have tap water in the UK. In terms of bottled water, so again, somebody on the group asked about bottled water quite early on. So I had a good look at them. Some of them do have more sodium in the bottled water and a little bit of potassium, but it was a very small amount. It was like very small amount per liter of water. So I didn't feel it was.
Freaked me out. Like I saw the comment back that you wrote that it did have sodium, and I drink a mix of sparkling water sometimes and regular water, and then I thought I was having loads of salt because of sparkling water, but it was like there was nothing in there. It was like very, very minimal. Nothing. Yeah. So sparkling water is the same as bottled water? Is that like sparkling water is the same as bottled water in regards to it's just as safe as tap water and there's nothing really to worry about in regards to drinking it?
no, 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 there isn't. And a few people were asking about the Brita filter or filtered waters, like in the jugs. I couldn't really find any good information about that. It's a little bit higher than the tap water, but I couldn't find anything really reliable and of it. So I don't know. There's also these water softening systems that you can get installed in your house, because the water in London or in the UK is quite hard. So you can get a water softener system installed. But again, I haven't been able to find any reliable information about what that does to your drinking water and the water you might cook with or anything like that. I don't know. I tried to find out, I couldn't find out. So if anybody knows, then
it's different
do
in
let us know.
Australia. The water in Australia, I know, has fluoride in it, and I've noticed when I've been in Australia versus the UK that it's a lot cooler, but also the water in the UK is very hard, which means that you kind of like get very clear marks on your cooking, or it can sometimes look very unclean, but it's probably just something else in there. So is the advice there just basically not worry too much? Bottled water, sparkling water, tap water, as long as it's water, it's probably good for you.
Yeah, 100%. And also just to mention, there are bottled waters that have got vitamins and minerals and all sorts of things enhanced in them, and I wouldn't recommend them. I think they're pure marketing, to be honest. And I think just regular water. Now, I'm quite conscious that there's people listening from other countries, and not all countries have safe drinking water. So in terms of that, I would say just check with your local government guidelines on healthy, on safe water and what you need to do. I know that some countries you need to boil the water, you need to boil tap water before you drink it, or some people only have certain bottled water. So just be mindful of that kind of thing. But in the UK, and I would have thought in the USA as well, tap water is absolutely fine. I think people think that bottled water is healthier, but actually it isn't really. And sometimes it's just tap water. Actually, there was a study a while ago that showed that some bottled water was tap water. So so just watch out. And also the other thing is, and this is kind of more sort of my save the planet side, is that all the plastic from the bottled waters, and we don't need that extra plastic, so just be mindful of that too.
And then in regards to overall, before we move on to the next topic, on like measuring how much water you drink every day, that I think can be quite cumbersome sometimes for people to figure out how much they should drink every day. So to keep track of it, I'd used a couple of apps before, and again, they're quite useful, but then every time you have a drink, you have to put it in the app. If you got any recommendations on how people keep track of how much water they should be drinking, if they're on a restriction or if they should be drinking more?
So before the app came about, we used to tell people to fill a jug with their water for the day, so 1 litre or 2 litres, whatever it is, and then either use that water as for drinking, or pour out the water into the sink every time they took a drink, or every time they made the tea or a coffee or had soup or jelly or ice cream or yogurt, because that all counts. So fill a jug at the beginning of the day, and then just pour out periodically as you have a drink, and then you'll know if you've drunk the right amount by the end of the day.
And that's a Hydrate Spark that I bought, and I think that if you're after something nifty, this is a really cool way to automatically measure how much water you're drinking. The funny thing is that it's in my cupboard because I can't be bothered. So it shows it's it's probably way too expensive and unnecessary when you can just probably do something as simple as what Ruth said with a jug. I mean, I bought this with the intention of really measuring stuff every day. And it would probably be more useful if I was bringing this to an office, but we're all at home nowadays, especially shielding in London. So to be honest, I just do what Ruth said, which is just like keeping a jug on my desk while I work during the day. to keep track of it. This became a little bit just tedious having this, because it was a bit small as well. Like it's kind of like only 500 mils. So I found myself having to refill it every few hours, and it's just easier to have a big jug. But there are things on the market that you can buy. I know this is probably too expensive. It's an unnecessary buy. I think it was like £60. So, but it comes with an app that does it automatically. So it means you don't have to log it every time on an app. I'm sure technology will continue to improve over time, and there'll be an easier way to measure it. But if you're after something that does it automatically, I'd get this Hydrate Spark, and that's probably the best thing on the market. Otherwise, there's a load of apps in the App Store that probably do it, or you can just use the old school jug of water way. So on the next topic is all around the yummy drinks. So like, I know a lot of people love a Coke or a Pepsi, sugary drinks that kind of include like Sprite and Fanta. You know, those guys sell by the bucket load. And I know in the States, especially, it's kind of very, very, very popular. So what is the recommendation on sugary drinks, basically Pepsi and Coke and those ones?
Okay, so first of all, we all know in our heart of hearts that those drinks are no good for us. Okay, we all do know that, but we just like them, right? Okay, now there's a few issues here. So the first thing to deal with is the sugar. Okay, so if you have diabetes, or if you're overweight, or if you're on steroids, or if you're on high dose immunosuppression, you don't want to be having too much sugar, because you don't want you to spiral your blood sugar levels out of control, which drinks can easily do. And you can easily drink a load of sugar, all right? So when you're looking at cans of sugar, of drink, or bottles of drink, do remember that 5 grams of sugar is 1 teaspoon of sugar. So if you're looking at a can of Coke that has 35 grams of sugar, or it used to, that's 7 teaspoons of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. So just remember that.
That is so much sugar. How much would that be in regards to like a chocolate bar? Is that like a 7 teaspoons of sugar would be close to, which is a lot of sugar, right? Like when you see that amount of quantity sitting there, 7 teaspoons of sugar, that's almost like a slice of cake, or like a chocolate bar.
So 50-gram bar of chocolate has got 6 teaspoons of sugar, so 28 grams of carbs. Always warn people who are on high dose steroids for whatever reason, or high dose immunosuppression, you know, for whatever reason, often for autoimmune kidney diseases. Just be careful with the amount of sugar that you have, because nobody warns you, and these medicines do mess up your sugar metabolism sometimes. So just be conscious of that, and just go easy on the sugar.
And
so that's the sugar thing.
Is the medications like the main effect on sugar when you consume it? Is it because it then makes your sugar levels go a bit erratic because it's...
We're not sure about the exact mechanism, but you do see, you know, steroid-induced diabetes. Okay, and I always wonder, that person who got the steroid-induced diabetes, were they eating lots of sugary foods? You don't always know that before, so it's hard to know. But that's why I just always warn people. And also, medicines like tacrolimus can affect blood sugar levels and can cause diabetes. I mean, it's very well documented in the medical literature that tacrolimus Prograf can cause diabetes. And again, it's by kind of interaction with the sugar metabolism. Sorry. So again, it's all well established, but no one warns you of that. And I always warn people, because I feel like they should know, and they should, you know, if it's something that they like a lot, then maybe they would reconsider if they know.
So if you're like an average Joe that loves, you know, having a can of Coke every day, or a Pepsi, or like one of these sugary drinks, do they recommend just they go cold turkey? Is there like a balance in, should they reduce that to a couple of times a week? Is there, what advice would you give to someone that drinks a lot of this stuff and really loves it?
So my usual moderation advice, I would say, you know, like just have it a few times a week, try the sugar-free version, have a bit of both, mix it up a little bit, maybe find something different that's got less sugar in it that you still like. Maybe there's other things out there that you haven't discovered yet that you might like. Maybe there's something healthier, maybe you could be a bit healthier, and maybe just have, those kind of drinks at the weekend, and then during the week drink water or have diluted juices or something like that.
And the last question around sugary drinks is, I think you've mentioned this on a previous podcast as well, but is there a difference between the darker ones like Coke and Pepsi and the lighter ones like Sprite and Fanta and 7-Up and those ones?
So Coke and Pepsi and any cola drink, not specifically Coca-Cola, but cola drinks, have got phosphoric acid in them, and phosphoric acid can affect bone health anyway, but in kidney patients, it can make the phosphorus level go up. It can interact with the phosphorus and the calcium and cause further bone problems. So I do strongly recommend to people not to have any dark cola drinks if you're a kidney patient. But if I have somebody who's really, it's their favorite thing in the world, then I get them to buy the mini cans and to have a few a week of those, and then they're having their favorite thing, and then they're not also compromising their health as well.
Awesome, that makes total sense. Kind of pivoting to yummy drinks, but a different version is juices. I feel like juices have become quite popular. I think growing up as well, I remember my dad worked actually at a big juice company in Australia, and we drank a lot of juice growing up with the thought that it was really healthy. I think that was a classic 90s diet where everything was healthy as long as the marketing price was right. So I think that with juices, they're really sugary, aren't they? Or maybe they're not. How do juices sit versus soft drink?
It's tricky, isn't it? A Coca-Cola or a Sprite or a Tango or fizzy something has got a lot of chemicals in it. It's completely 100% artificial. Okay, so it's not likely to be good for us in any way, shape, or form. A juice, on the other hand, can be a freshly squeezed juice, right? And therefore have lots of vitamins and minerals in it for us. So that it's a good drink. But if you think about, I don't know if anyone's ever done this, but how many oranges do you need to squeeze to get a glass of orange juice? It's probably about 10 to get a good glass.
My wife bought one yesterday from, where were we? We were, I think, just in the supermarket. I think it was in Co-op. And she came out with a fresh juice, but she got from the machine that did all the oranges and stuff like that. And it uses quite a lot.
Yeah. So, and you wouldn't sit and eat 10, 12 oranges at once, and it will have natural sugar in it. So it is really high in sugar. And I'm just looking at my book. So orange juice, 150 mils of orange juice is 12 grams of sugar. So that's like 2.5 teaspoons for just 150 ml. So that's quite a lot. And then a smoothie, a strawberry and banana smoothie, will have 20 grams of sugar. So that's 4 teaspoons of sugar. And again, the problem with the juices is that it uses a huge amount of fruit, and you wouldn't sit and eat that amount of fruit normally. And therefore, and also it's in a liquid format, so it's absorbed into the bloodstream very, very quickly. Whereas when you eat a fruit, the actual fruit like strawberry or banana, it's got the fiber with it as well, and it's got other things with it. So it's not absorbed so quickly into the bloodstream, whereas a drink, it goes straight in, whoosh. So it can cause a spike in blood sugar levels. So I'm not a big fan of juices at all, but if someone really likes them, I say have it, but maybe consider getting used to a diluted taste.
Yeah, is there then a view on bottled juices that are kind of like you'd buy in a store versus a fresh juice? Would that be the same then to look at, or is one worse than the other?
So sometimes the juices, the bottles, have got added sugar as well, or sometimes not added sugar, but it can have more calories than a fresh juice that you might juice at home. I think if you're going to have a juice, either have a small amount, so 100 ml, or juice it yourself, and then you know how many oranges you've used. So maybe you might say to yourself, okay, do you know what, I really love orange juice, I'm going to have a 5 orange juice, and whatever I get from those 5 oranges, that's my juice for today.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it, because you don't really think about that when you're drinking it. You just kind of drink it and you're like, oh, that was just like a regular drink, but you might be having 20 pieces of fruit, which is probably quite a lot to have, and a lot of sugar for your body.
Yeah.
So the next topic, and the final topic kind of for the podcast, is kind of another really popular question we get on the group. And I'll plug the group. It's called Kidney Disease Diet, and I'll cut this out because I forgot what it was called. What is the group called? Kidney Disease.
It's Kidney Disease Recipes and Diet Ideas.
Yeah. So the last bit, we get a lot of requests on our group. It's called, check out the group as well if you're not already on the group, because we've got a few thousand kidney patients in there, some valuable information. But it's a kidney disease recipe and diet tips, and there's a nice yummy salmon when you kind of go into it, and you'll find the podcast as well in there, when it's a safe place to be for kidney patients. But the last topic we're going to talk about is like coffee and tea, two really popular drinks that a lot of people have. Probably the most common question we get in the group is, can I have coffee and tea anymore? Do I need to take them out of my diet as well? Are they bad for kidney patients, coffee and tea?
So just talking about coffee first. So coffee is fine, and I think there's a little bit of a misconception about coffee, because people think that coffee is really terrible for you because it's got caffeine in it, and actually it's only bad if you react to it. So some people are very, very sensitive to caffeine, and they'll have a small amount of caffeine, even in tea actually, and they get high blood pressure, or they go crazy wild and are awake all day and all night and can't sleep. So I think it's how your body reacts to caffeine first. That's the most important thing. The second thing is that coffee is obviously higher, one of the higher things in caffeine, and you just need to watch your blood pressure with it. So there are reports that people drink a lot of coffee, have higher blood pressure, and when they cut back on their coffee, their blood pressure goes down. So obviously in chronic kidney disease, blood pressure management is the focal point of managing the kidney disease so that it doesn't progress further. And having normal blood pressure is really important to maintain kidney function. So you don't want to do anything bad to that. So see how you go and see what works for you best. If you're okay with 3 coffees a day, not a problem at all. But if you're not, then just be aware of how much you can have. In terms of coffee as well, we talk about potassium, because potassium can get tricky to manage in chronic kidney disease. And coffee does have some potassium. It's not got a lot of potassium. It's got, I think it's just under 100 milligrams a cup. But I think it can, if you're finding it tricky to manage your levels, then you need to think about the coffee in your diet as well and manage that. So that's coffee. In terms of tea, I think there's nothing wrong with tea. Have tea, it's a good liquid. All this, I've heard over the years, people say to me, oh no, can't have coffee and tea because it makes you dehydrated. It does not. It makes you, it gives you fluid, and fluid makes you go to the toilet and you pass urine, and if you're not drinking enough, then you're going to get dehydrated anyway, no matter if you're having water or tea or coffee. So that, I think, is a bit of a nonsense. In terms of tea, I think tea is actually a great drink. I think about the fruit teas, the herbal teas, all those other teas that exist are really fab. The only tea that I've heard that is not good for kidney patients, and again, it can make blood pressure drop very quickly if you're on blood pressure medicines, is nettle tea. And there's I can put a link on actually, and they say not to have anything with nettles in it because it causes a big drop in blood pressure if you're on blood pressure medicines, which often kidney patients are. So don't have nettle tea, but have all the fruit teas and herbal teas that exist are absolutely fine.
And so still on kind of tea and coffee, another question we get in the group is around ice tea. So it's kind of like a, in Australia, I remember there was with Lipton iced tea. I'm not sure what the one in the UK was. And I do remember specifically when I had my transplant that I had a lot of iced tea because I liked it. But I do know now retrospectively, it's probably full of sugar and it's probably
It's
bottled.
full of sugar.
Is that true? The iced tea is probably not the best for you as well?
Yeah. I think the bottle commercial iced tea can be full of sugar, but some of them have got sweeteners in them because I quite like them, and I won't drink calories too much. So I always choose, you know, if I'm going to go for a non-water drink, I'll choose something that's the lowest calories because I don't mind sweeteners and I don't think they're poisonous. So there are iced teas that are got sweeteners in rather than sugar, but I would go for one that is low in sugar, unless you're really underweight and you need to build yourself up and you're not diabetic and you're not taking any of those medicines I mentioned, and you need the calories from drinks, because often when people need to build themselves up, I say to them, drink your calories as well. So that would be a good way of doing that.
Okay. And then the last question we have on iced tea and tea and coffee is around kind of artificial sweeteners. I think we get a lot of questions in the group around artificial sweeteners. So if you're kind of wanting a coffee, wanting to not have the sugar, and then kind of wanting a sweetener or kind of a tea with a bit of sweetener, what is the overall advice on sweeteners with coffee and tea and other drinks?
So the whole sweetener kind of issue is huge, and people think it's poisonous and people think it's causing brain cancer, and I've been lots of conversations where people think it's poison, and it's not poison, and you don't have that much of it in a day. It's very small quantities because, you know, a sweetener is, you know, 100 or 1,000 times sweeter than sugar, so you need the most tiny amount. And the whole issue with aspartame and brain tumors came from a study that was done with rats, and they gave them 100 times the amount that any human can consume, and they got brain tumors. And so it was a bit of and that made the headlines. So that's where it comes from. But in terms of sweeteners, as far as we're all aware, they're absolutely fine. The National Kidney Foundation has got a nice page on sweeteners if you're interested. So just go to the National Kidney Foundation page and Google artificial sweeteners in CKD, or just do that, and you'll see it's safe, it's fine. There is a sweetener that I can't say the name of because I don't know how to say it, but it's got a K at the end of it, and that's got potassium in it.
So is
you know how to say it.
Is the watch out for kidney patients more around the potassium than the brain cancer?
Yeah. So it's just that one about potassium. It's got potassium in it, and we say maybe it's a good idea not to have it. I think the best sweetener there is possibly stevia, because it comes from the bark of a tree. It's quite natural sweetener, doesn't seem to cause gut problems, and that is a really good sweetener to go for if you're picking up in the supermarket sweetener. The other sweetener, which I will give caution to, is any sweetener that is a sugar alcohol. So xylitol, erythritol, sorbitol, and those are not absorbed very well in the gut and can cause tummy upset, tummy pain, really bad bloating. And I do say to people, don't have them, stay away from them. There are others on the market. There's a big thing that xylitol is such a great one to cook with, but I just think it causes loads of gastrointestinal issues, which you don't need. You don't need anything on top of what you've got as a kidney patient. So just be mindful of those.
Awesome. And I think so that's all the time we have for today. We kind of covered a lot from, fluids and water to sugary drinks to juices to coffee and tea. Thank you again, Ruth, for your wisdom. You can check out all the podcasts we've done on our back catalog as well, on Spotify and on YouTube and on our social channels. Just look up Kidney Ally in either ones and you'll be able to find it in 2 seconds. And yeah, we're looking forward to the next one and really appreciate you spending the time today, guys.
Thank you. Bye.